So, would you like to do a death contemplation? Yeah? So we'll do a little bit of safety framing. And I mean that it's a good thing to do, right? So there's people in this room who have lost loved ones quite recently. There's people in this room who have seen dead bodies. And sometimes these kinds of contemplations can bring up some unpleasant or difficult memories. And so I just want to acknowledge that for some people this might be a difficult contemplation to do. And to let you know that it's okay if you feel some discomfort. A little bit of discomfort is okay. But if it becomes overwhelming and you feel like the contemplation isn't for you, at any time you can just leave. Go outside, get some fresh air, chill out, and when you're ready you can come back in. So I just want to let you know that that's okay to do if that happens for you. However, you have also been working with your mind the last 2 days, developing peace and stability through the practice of anapanasati, the breath meditation. And we've also been very gradually getting used to this idea of contemplating death in various ways. So I think for most of you, even though you've lost some loved ones recently, or you're still in grief, or you've seen dead bodies, I think this meditation will be useful for you to do. So the Buddha recommended the practice of maranasati, the contemplation of death, and taught it in several different ways. So we just saw in the sutta that we just read about the kind of things that could lead to death. There's also a collection of suttas called Future Perils, where unfortunate events in the future are enumerated. But probably the one place that most of you are already familiar with doing a kind of death contemplation is through the Satipatthana Suttas, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And it comes under the awareness of the body, mindfulness of the body. So under that category we have things like the breath. We also have things like the 4 elements. And then we have the 9 cemetery contemplations, the 9 contemplations of the decomposition of a corpse. And so the Buddha recommended this practice. And at that time, cemeteries were quite different. They're not like the neat kind of sleek and well-maintained cemeteries that you might go to when someone you know dies. They weren't like the beautiful Gothic Victorian cemeteries that are still around in many places in the world. They were called charnel grounds, and there were places where people just dumped bodies. Maybe there would have been a little bit of cremation happening there. Cremation would have been expensive, right? And so these were places that the Buddha encouraged monks and nuns to go and visit. Why? To make it real. And today, monks and nuns sometimes will have like a little file at the back of the library. It will say monks and nuns only. And it'll be a little collection of asubha, the repulsive. And there'll be some images of things like a corpse or a post-mortem and things like that. And so this is like the ersatz kind of form of doing this kind of contemplation, just looking at it in pictures. There's some places where monks and nuns will be invited to go and actually witness a post-mortem in like a hospital or a teaching institution. There's some places, some friends of mine have visited these places where the forensics team of police forces have like a little place where they leave some bodies out so that they can learn how long it takes for a body to decompose and things like that in various conditions so they can do better policing. So these are some ways that people might do this contemplation today. You don't really have to go that far though. I mean, you can just walk around and you see death everywhere. You see the poor snails that have been trodden on. You see the ducks hanging in the window of the butchers. You see the little chicken corpses on the table, ready to eat. We don't have to look far to find death. Little ants on the floor, dead flies on the windowsill. So there's everywhere. Death is everywhere, right? But this kind of death doesn't impact us for some reason, does it? Doesn't affect us very deeply. We're so immune to it. So there is something special about putting a container around a contemplation like this and bringing our full awareness to it, bringing all our attention to it, leading up to it over a few days and allowing it to have an impact on our mind. And so we're going to do this corpse meditation, the 9 cemetery contemplations, where we visualize a corpse in front of us, lying down. The Buddha said, this body, the vows, eventually it'll just be like a log, just like a log lying there. That's what this body is like, just like a log lying there. And we'll visualize the various stages that corpse goes through. So this helps us, firstly, to understand the nature of life and death. It also will help us to understand our ideas of self. We inquire more deeply into, where did I come from? What is this body? Who does this body belong to after I die? Why am I holding on to this idea of me, mine, this is my body, when I have to just give it up? And so these are the kinds of things that we're going to be investigating. And that's why it's such a powerful practice. It hits so many of the right buttons for Buddhist doctrine and for just anyone in the world who's got a body, who's alive. So we're going to just take a few minutes to settle into our practice, and then I'll come back and I'll begin the guided meditation. I wonder if it's possible to turn the lights down a little bit. Okay, good. So we've got maybe 30 or 40 minutes, so let's just spend a good 10 minutes arriving in this moment, in this meditation. Remembering that here we are, together, surrounded by good friends, supported in this place. So we don't have to worry, we can just relax, we can let go, we can allow ourselves to come to that place of calm, peace, that we know is somewhere there, deep inside of us. And so just spend 10 minutes becoming aware of your body in space, relaxing, settling, allowing the mind to become peaceful and calm. Perhaps watching the breath. So practice however you want for the next 10 or so minutes. And now, surrounded by friends and supported by the Dhamma, we'll begin our contemplation of death. Visualize in front of you the corpse of an unknown person, 1, 2, or 3 days dead. This corpse is starting to change now that it no longer supports life. A process has begun. A natural process, a process that happens to all bodies left lying there in this way. And so this body, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days old, has started to bloat and swell due to the gases inside the body. The blood, which used to pulse, has stopped moving and has begun to pool. Turning the body blue, blotched. The skin changing, taking on a waxy appearance, mottled, blue, blotched. There's some liquid at the corners of the mouth, the eyes. And you notice there is no breath, there is no movement, there is no life left in this body. And yet there is change, there is a process. So you visualize this body bloated, blue, lifeless. See it clearly. See the head, face, the vacant eyes. See the mouth. See the shoulders and arms and chest and torso. See the stiffness in the limbs. See the pressure in the skin, bloated and blue. Seeing clearly, we reflect. My body is of the same nature. I have not gone beyond death. My body too will be like this. There's nothing I can do to stop it. This will be my inescapable fate. And it's okay. It's normal and natural. All beings must die. All bodies must change and decay. This process, this natural process, continues. Now that body becomes food for other living beings. Dogs gnaw at it. Jackals take bites. Crows and vultures peck at it. And we see so many tiny creatures. Ants, flies, maggots, all feasting on this body. It's normal. It's only natural. This is a part of the process, this natural process. And so too, my body is of the same nature. I have not gone beyond death. When I leave this body, it will become food for other beings. And there's nothing I can do to prevent it. This body won't belong to me. This body is not mine. And the process continues. The animals, insects, birds have taken their fill of the flesh and skin of that body lying there. Now the insides of that body are revealed, the skin pulled back like a curtain. We see flesh. We see blood. We see bones. We see tendons. We see the insides. We see what is usually hidden from us. We see how fragile, how impermanent a body is. My body is of the same nature. I have skin and flesh, blood, bones, and tendons. and I have not gone beyond death. My body too will look just like that. My body too will go through this process of change. I can't stop it. This is my inescapable fate. The body continues to change, to decay. Now the flesh eaten away completely, leaving a skeleton stained by blood, the bones held together by tendons. And soon even that blood dries up. The bones, the tendons are all that's left. Those tendons holding that body together. Holding what's left of the human form. A puppet with strings. And so too my body, held together, so fragile. My body will look just like that. Bones held together by tendons. This will be my fate. And over time, the process continues. Now, even those tendons have dried out, withered away, been eaten. Those strings that held that body together, gone. That human shape, shattered. The bones scattered. Here a foot bone, there a hand bone, over there a shin bone, there a thigh bone. A rib bone, over there a neck bone, over there a tooth, over there jaw, and over there a skull. My body is of the same nature. My bones will become scattered. There's nothing I can do about it. But this is natural. This is a process. This is my fate. Those bones scattered, baking in the sun, bleached by the sunlight. They become bright, white, just like a conch shell. But over time, they change, becoming yellow, decaying, and moved by the wind and rain, kicked by people, picked over by animals. Now, all that's left is a pile of yellowed, brown bones. My body is of the same nature. I have not gone beyond death. My bones too will become yellow, old, brittle. And it's okay. This is a natural process. And now, many years, many hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years in the future, those yellow, decaying bones, eroded by wind and water, they've become nothing more than a pile of dust. That body we saw has changed. That body has undergone a natural process of decay. And now all that remains is dust. My body is of the same nature. I have not gone beyond death. All beings that are born must die. Those bodies will decay. My body will decay. There's nothing I can do to stop it. This is my inescapable fate. Knowing this, understanding this, Why do I cling so tightly to this body of mine? This body that has been changing since before I was born. Changing as I grew up. Changing as I grew old. And will continue to change after I die. Why do I cling to this body? To me, mine, I. This body does not belong to me. This body is not self. And so for the next few minutes, reviewing the process, the change that happened to that body, remembering what happened to that 1 day, 2 day, 3 day old corpse, bloated and blue, mottled, lifeless. Remembering how it was eaten by dogs, jackals, crows, and vultures, insects, and how the skin pulled back revealed flesh, blood, bones, tendons, how the flesh decayed, leaving a blood-stained skeleton connected by tendons, the bones eventually becoming scattered, turning white, bleached by the sun. And then aging, becoming brown and yellow, decrepit. And finally, becoming nothing more than dust. Remembering that my body is of the same nature, that this will be my fate. Now we're coming to the end of this practice. Still with your eyes closed, take a few moments to review. How are you feeling? How was it to contemplate a corpse? To imagine your own death? Was it challenging? Was it easy? Was there something that stuck out for you? What did you learn about bodies? What did you learn about yourself? And did you find some peace whilst contemplating death? And so now we'll leave behind our contemplation. We come back to this room, here and now, surrounded by friends, supported. So we let go the contemplation arising from the meditation. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Good. So maybe we can have the lights back on. Maybe just one. You're alive. Yeah. You're alive. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah? So what are you going to do about it? So why don't we take a few minutes to stretch, move around, maybe use the bathroom, and come back and we'll do something else. Okay? Be quick, maybe 5 minutes? 5 minutes. 10 minutes? 10 minutes, okay. Very good. See you in 10 minutes. Was it your first contemplation on death, some of you, maybe? Yeah? Good. And so some people were sharing that they found it good and useful and profound. So I wonder if it stirred anything in you, if it Saṃvega'd anything in you. Maybe a little. I was talking before with some people about how important it is to actually engage in an emotional sense with these reflections like old age, sickness, death. We need to have some sort of emotional reaction. Often in Buddhism we're trained to be very neutral, like to have equanimity and to not feel anything. Sometimes we're kind of told that emotions are bad, we shouldn't have them, we should get rid of them. But the Buddha, he often encouraged emotional responses, and the whole path is emotional, in that we experience things like joy and happiness, and we rejoice in other people's goodness, or we experience a strong desire to escape suffering. When we contemplate things with Saṃvega, we experience this emotional response of a mixture of fear and concern and a desire to escape. And so these emotional responses are sometimes very useful, very instructive. And for many of us, we've covered over our emotions. We've trained ourselves to not feel, and we might sometimes even think that that's the spiritual way to go. But sometimes what's happening is that we've just become numb. We've allowed ourselves to stop feeling. Feelings are so difficult and awkward. Feelings can be too much sometimes. But feeling our way into understanding these topics is important. Feeling that response to the idea of death. Feeling a response to the idea of sickness and old age. It should affect you. Seeing it clearly should affect you. Maybe if it doesn't affect us, we haven't seen it clearly enough. And so we keep investigating. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking about one of my favourite suttas. I know I've said that about all of the suttas so far. One of my favourite suttas, where the Buddha talks about the importance of being stirred by the contemplation of death. So I'll leave that for tomorrow. Did anyone have anything they wanted to say about the contemplation? Anything they wanted to add, or any questions about it? Any complaints? No? So it's something that you can do from time to time. You might not want to make it like a daily practice, but from time to time it's really healthy to contemplate impermanence in this way. But remember to always balance it out with, the peace, the pasada, with the quiet confidence and composure that you have developed over these last few days, so that your mind is strong and stable and able to look without being scared or frightened. So remember to always develop that as your base, and then when you come to do the death contemplation, your mind's prepared, you're in a good place, and it's not going to freak you out too much. So I'll start answering some questions. How to practice Vipassana. So this is like a whole retreat in itself. The first thing to be aware of is that the way this word is used has become somewhat misused. And to tell you the truth, I've got no idea what it means anymore. It's got so many different meanings. So the way the Buddha used this term Vipassana is quite particular, and he didn't separate the practice of Vipassana in the way it's become separated over the last few hundred years. And he didn't brand it as a meditation method, as has happened over the last 4 or 5 decades. That long? Yeah. And so sometimes when people talk about Vipassana, they're like, practice Vipassana, practice Vipassana. And they basically mean just do meditation. And one place I was staying recently, the abbot would say things like, Vipassana protects your mind, Vipassana, yeah, it's kind of like a synonym for wisdom, but many people use it just as a synonym for meditation. Like, Vipassana protects your mind, Vipassana helps to purify your mind, Vipassana is always good. Vipassana, practice Vipassana, practice Vipassana. And it's like, what do you mean?